Now, live, NBC 10 News at 11.
Well, also in Washington today, a mother from Philadelphia who paid the ultimate price tells her emotional story.
NBC 10's Kristen Welker is just back from the nation's capital, and she has that story tonight. Kristen?
Well, Tim and Renee, we traveled to Washington, D.C. with the founder of Mothers in Charge, Dorothy Johnson-Speight. She says today's trip to Washington was a part of a journey that actually started a long time ago. Dorothy Johnson-Speight takes her fight against violence to Capitol Hill. At the forefront of her mind, her son, Colic, who was shot to death 8 years ago.
My son died as a result of violence, senseless violence. So it's important, you know, I feel his presence here today.
Johnson-Speight, founder of Mothers in Charge, a Philadelphia-based anti-violence group, testified at a House hearing on Violence Wednesday. She talked about her group, which is made up of moms who have lost children, and showed a video about how they try to prevent more deaths, in part by reaching out to youths in prison. Her message, send more federal dollars to local communities.
With this support, a measurable reduction in crime will be visible. Whether it's Columbine or on the streets of North Philadelphia, we must save our most precious gift from God, our children.
And her words may help get the money flowing. The chairman of the committee, Congressman Robert Scott, wanted to hear from Dorothy and others because he's sponsoring a bill that would send at least $300 million to communities for crime prevention services like outreach and after-school programs. He says a study that was done in Pennsylvania shows investing in prevention decreases crime and saves money in the long run.
They found that $60 million worth of investments produced over $300 million in savings in incarceration, savings in health care costs.
The impact of Johnson-Speight's testimony was clear. Now she just hopes it makes a difference and hopes her son is watching.
He was always my #1 fan. He was always cheering me on whether I was going back to school or whatever I was doing. He was always saying, Mom, you can do it. So I know he's very proud today.
Well, this is actually Johnson-Speight's second time testifying on Capitol Hill. Congressman Scott plans to introduce his legislation tomorrow. He says even though we are in a recession, he feels it is necessary. Kristen Welker, NBC 10 News.
A Philadelphia mother whose son died a violent death has now told her story on Capitol Hill, and her testimony may help make Philadelphia a safer city. NBC 10's Kristen Welker is here now with this mother's powerful story. Kristen?
Tim, I traveled to Washington with the founder of Mothers in Charge, Dorothy Johnson-Speight. Her son was shot to death 8 years ago, and ever since, she has fought against violence in Philadelphia. Yesterday, she took her cause all the way to Capitol Hill. Johnson-Speight testified at a hearing on youth violence. She talked about her Philadelphia-based group made up of other mothers who've also lost children and how they try to prevent more deaths. Her testimony comes as lawmakers consider a bill that would send at least $300 million to communities throughout the United States for crime prevention. Joining me now is Dorothy Johnson-Speight. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon, Dorothy. Tell us a little bit more about this bill and how you got invited to testify.
Actually, I received a call to come to Congress to give testimony on this bill. It's actually for Congress. They're looking at funding community-based organizations that are doing the work on violence prevention. They're very concerned about the increasing number of, deaths due to violence and also incarceration of young people. So Congressman Scott has introduced a bill, and he's going to reintroduce it and continue to do that until he gets the support he needs to get it passed. And I believe that will bring the funding that we need so desperately to do the work that we do.
Talk a little bit about what your main message was yesterday. You really focused on the fact that we need this bill.
Yes.
Why?
We need it because the young people are dying every single day in this city and cities across this country as a result of violence. And we need the help of the government to intervene and provide the support and the resources that folks like Mothers in Charge, the organization like Mothers in Charge, has a passion to do this work. But we do need the help of the government and their support, and a partner. We need a partner in this fight against violence.
And one of the main messages that I heard yesterday during yesterday's testimony was that this is not only something that will save lives, it's also something that saves money in the long run, which is something that we're all thinking about right now as we're in the midst of this recession.
Absolutely.
Talk about how that works.
They talked about $64 billion dollars on a national level in terms of incarceration. And one of the things that the congressman pointed out is that we cannot arrest our way out of the situation. We have to have programs and interventions and things that will help, deter the violence. You cannot continue to, lock folks up. That's not working. We see that that's not working. So the monies that are spent for incarceration could be better spent in programs and support to organizations like Mothers in Charge.
You said yesterday that your son was at the forefront of your mind while you were testifying. What were your thoughts?
I was just thinking how proud he would be of me. It was an honor to be on Capitol Hill yesterday to give testimony on such a very important issue, one that Mothers in Charge has focused on for the last 5 years. And so I felt his spirit. I felt him there with me. It was at times very emotional because I feel that his life was not in vain, that there's some good that's coming out of such a tragedy. And that helps a little bit.
All right. Well, we appreciate all that you do, Dorothy Johnson-Speight. Thank you so much for being here today. Back to you guys.